Okay, so I was asked to go in and kind of explain some of the dimensioning. I do want to preface this by saying I'm pretty sure when I'm going over this, this one is twice as large as yours is, and so is this one. So like if 1 inch on here would be like half an inch on yours, same thing with this one. It's the same shape, just proportionally larger. So if you're dimensioning yours and your numbers are like half the size of mine, that's okay. This is really more about getting the dimensions right than uh, drawing things at this point. So uh, this shape, we've got all three views. We do need all three views for how this is drawn. And we're just going to go in. You have to do datum dimensioning. Try grab the baseline tool. Datum is when you're having them where the larger one always goes on the outside. So I got these two. I can't do this hidden line on here. So I'm going to do the hidden line. Oops, forgot to create. So remember always when you're doing the baseline, you got to hit continue. Then you got to right click again and create. So I also have to do this dimension here from this edge to this because we could not do it down here because of the hidden line. All right. The contours for this stuff's on here. We could do them down here, but it would work better up here. So I'm going to do a baseline on these dimensions here, but not these because the contours are over here. So I'm going to do the contours for that over here with another baseline. So I'm going to click all of these, and notice these are all datum dimensions. They're all starting from the same point. So like this is 0.5 from here, this is 2 from here, and then this is 2.5 from here. So that's all of my depth dimensions. I got all of my length dimensions, and now I just need to put in my heights. So I do need to put in the height, so I need the height here. And I need the overall height, and I kind of have two options to do that. I can either do that here or here, and I'm going to opt to do it here just because I feel like it. It could be on the other side, and that would be just as correct. And that covers all the dimensions. So it asks you to do these baseline. Baseline obviously always going out as opposed to chain, which we'll do in a moment. And with these, it did say that these should be changed in terms of their direction. So I have to go to Edit, Dimension Style. And in here under the text for our vertical dimensions, I have to change them so that they're in line because that's what it's asking for. And now if I hit save, it will flip all of these so that they are indeed in line. The reason I did that is if you look at the assignment, if we go to Unit 7 and we look at the dimensioning, it asked that the dimensions are aligned and that they are datum. Now the next one we're going to do asks for chain dimensioning and unidirectional, which was the default is unidirectional. So got all of these. I'm just going to flip this over to the other side because when we can avoid putting directions on the outside of this invisible picture frame, we do so. Okay. Which on that same logic, I'm going to flip this on the inside. Okay. So that's one. On the next one, I have 3 drawings here. You really don't need all 3. I can get done with just 2, so I'm going to delete one of these views. And I'm going to go in here, and these are chain dimensioned. So we do like when we're doing chain dimensioning, we do prefer to have an overall dimension. So I've got an overall dimension right here. And once again, my scale is off. This should be 2 instead of 8. But we're just going with it. So when you draw it, yours should be 2 inches. And then I select the chain. I'm going to right click continue. And I'm going to add those dimensions there. So like I said, this one seems to be about 4 times larger than yours should be, which is okay. So we did the chain here. We're also on the bottom, we have to do a chain because of the contours. So I'm going to go back to chain. I did not hit create with that. So I do have to 1, 2, 3 continue, create. So that was an issue. And here, and I do have to, because the contours are here and because I can't dimension on hidden lines, I have to do a set of dimensions along the bottom as well. So like so. Moving on, I have to do the depth dimensions. There's really only one depth dimension. So I'm going to put it right here. And then I need to do the height dimensions. And there's a couple height dimensions. So I'm going to chain these two like so. And that should have been chained, so I got to delete this. And obviously chaining is from one thing to the other thing. So I got my chain. And then I'm going to do an overall dimension to cover this up. And these are unidirectional, so they're all staying in the same direction. So this is how you'd dimension an object like this. Keep in mind the scale is off. The dimensions are not the same numbers that you should be getting, but the procedure is right. You could have also deleted this view and used this view over to the side, and that would have been correct as well. The next one is asking you to do coordinate dimensioning. Once again, we only need two views, so we're not doing any angles on this, even though there are angles, and it's asking you to use datum dimensioning. So this one is actually one of the simplest to dimension. You simply grab baseline, and then every single line we see, we click, we right click and hit continue, and we right click and hit create, and that creates all of our length dimensions. We're going to do the same thing over here on the side. We can actually click this line and then the top line. That should give us everything we need here. Create all of those. And then finally, we are going to come up and do the depth. Now, this one I am going to change the dimensions. This one's supposed to be in metric. So under edit dimension style, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to change my units to millimeters, and let us see what happens. So there's our dimensions in millimeters. It appears that I drew this one in inches. So once again, like this should be 40 millimeters in yours, but I'm just taking these from the folder that I had them drawn in. But this is the procedure, and you would remember to go in and switch them to millimeters. So like yours should be like 10, 20, etc. So that is how to do datum coordinate dimensioning. And it was also how to change from inches by going to edit dimension style, changing from your measurements from inches to millimeters or centimeters, whatever you so choose. Keep in mind, my dimensions are not the same as yours. And next, moving on, got this one. Once again, we could actually get this one done with only two views. We do not need both of these. So I'm going to delete this one because it does not have contours. So I'm deleting it because it does not have any contours that will help me. This one does have the contours, so the depth dimension should go on this one. This one, we are doing datum dimensioning. But we are also, don't want that. We're doing datum dimensioning, but we're also doing, I'm going to go here. We're also doing angular dimensioning. So to get the angle, sometimes it can be tricky. So I have to actually go on the inside or the outside. You could pick where you'd want to go for this. I'm going to go on the outside on both of these. So with those angles, you should be able to draw this object. I'm going to click here to here. And I'm going to have that just like so. I'm going to move this up a tad because I've got to do some baselines on here. Boom, boom. Actually, I don't need any of those. Those are covered on the bottom. So I just have to do boom, boom, boom. right click create, and that's all the dimensions I need. Once again, this is double the scale yours would be. You could move this down, even though we typically don't. I would accept something like this because it makes it much neater with the angles and the cutting through, but this is also fine. You could conversely also, if you wanted, move this up to the top view. This would be acceptable as well. So there you go. You got a baseline with angular dimensioning as opposed to the previous where we did coordinate dimensioning. And finally, this is probably the most difficult one. I'm actually going to double the scale to make it easier for you guys to see. Once again, I do not know if my dimensions are the correct dimensions, but it's proportionally the same. So let's go in here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put my center line in here to go around. So I'm going to select a center line. And I'm going to click on each of the circles like so, and back to the original. Right click create. So that creates that good center line. I am going to put a center mark in the middle of the big circle like so. And after I do so, I can go to these center lines like so, and I can make my dimension. Now you want these two as close as you can. Line the arrows up. That is proper procedure. We also, even though we do not dimension to a hidden line, in this case we can dimension to the center line. This happens to be scaled properly. And this I should have done a hole and thread, so I'm going to actually go back and change this. Instead of just doing the circle, I'm going to dimension a hole and thread because it is a hole. Now it gives you a depth. I'm going to click OK. I'm going to double click on this. And then in front of this, I'm going to type 3x to signify that all three of the holes, 1, 2, 3, are the same dimension. I'm going to scoot this in here. And I am going to dimension the following things. Now it's very important when you're dimensioning this that you go in and you make sure that it says that it is a diameter, because it is a diameter. So we're going in and we're adding the diameter to these two circles. So it's very important you do that because it's signifying that this is circular, the object. We didn't dimension it on the circle. Got to go on the other side of the text here because there was a lot going on over there. We wanted to try to clutter it less. And it's also indicating when you dimension a circle this way that they are sharing the same center point. They are concentric circles. I just scoot this out of the way because I'm going to throw a bisecting center line in here. So I'm going to go up here to the centerline bisector tool, and I'm going to put a center line there. I'm going to put a center line there, and I'm going to put a center line down the middle here. Okay, and this one I might actually stretch out to signify that it's both. All right, just looking, seeing if I need anything else. Since we don't have a third view, it does not matter if you go on the bottom or the top here. So I do need the dimensions for the thicknesses here. So I'm just going to do a baseline for that. And there you go. That is the minimum amount of dimensions required to draw this object. Now, if you don't have Inventor or you didn't do this already at school, or you need to do a corrections, what I'm saying is if you have Inventor, draw this on Inventor, hand it in. A lot of you have already done that, and I will be grading it. If you don't have Inventor, what you're going to do is you're going to get your graph paper out. And let me just make myself a little bigger so you can see. Get your graph paper out and pick one or two of them and draw it and then dimension it as shown. So I'm going to say if you didn't do this assignment already and you don't have Inventor, draw 2. You got to do 2 by hand. If you got any incorrect on Inventor and you don't have Inventor and you'd like to correct them, draw them in your notebook, dimension them, and resubmit them. Okay? So that's what we're going to do for this assignment. But I just took you through all the answers for everything, so you should be good in that regard. Good luck, and I hope that you don't have any problems with this.